Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Storytelling Alchemist Show. I am very excited about my guest tonight. I met her a few months ago because she actually sent in an application to be a presenter on my cruise. And I believe that one of our presenters actually referred her into our cruise. And but the story goes is that there was a lot of synchronicities. We had just had a lot of changes with the cruise, and she came right at the right and perfect time for exactly what we needed for the cruise. I'm going to be introducing Dr. Mary Newstrom. She is a studied Peruvian shamanism and has actually gone down to Peru and spent a lot of time down there, takes people down to Peru, is a life coach, and also from my hometown, which of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I'm pretty excited about bringing her on the show. So please welcome Dr. Mary Newstrom. Hi, how are you today, Dr. Newstrom? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's going to be super. I just remember when we first met cyberly on
Yes.
Cyber World,
Yes.
that all the synchronicities that had happened, and it was so funny. I was kind of introducing you. Tina and I were so excited because we'd been like, we really want somebody to teach shamanism, and then you just literally came into our life like 2 days later. You know, you manifested us, or we manifested you.
Yeah, and it
So
was it was interesting because I know another presenter on the cruise, and she had sent me the link saying, I think you would she'd mentioned it before, but then she sent it again saying, I think you'd be really interested in this. And I thought, yeah. I mean, it just was perfect. And then to get the call from Tina and then meeting you and Tina was great. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So let's just kind of jump in to your work because I'm really excited. You have kind of a very cool background. I think when we met, you have a PhD in psychology,
Yes.
and you
Yep.
had told me that at that point in time, you do more coaching than therapy,
Correct.
and then you've obviously gone down a spiritual path and kind of looking in your background a little bit. You I think you got into healing work because you had some physical health issues going on,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's what brought you down this path. But could you talk a little bit about how you went through this path? Because that's kind of an interesting path to go from like more logical based science to
Yep.
going into the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you for having me on the show. I I'm a shamanic practitioner, and I have always been interested in spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal concepts since I was a little girl. Since I had my first library card and could go to the library and pick out the books about, ghost stories or Ripley's or Believe It or Not or Bermuda Triangle, that really helped me go deeper with my interests. But I think really with my spirituality, I attended a Catholic grade school, and that really helped me understand religion and spirituality. And as I became a young adult, was really seeking spirituality. In fact, actually, I got introduced to my guide in 1982, Zenith, who I continue to work with right now. At that time, that was about 82, 83. Got attuned to Reiki 1 way before Reiki was popular. And then in the 90s got introduced to shamanism. And that's because I was looking for spirituality that really um, met my interest in nature. Now, on the flip side, Jeremy, what you mentioned is I do have a very intellectual, traditional type of schooling. And so I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, my master's is in sports psychology, and my PhD is in wellness psychology. And I've just really merged the two. In 2015, when I traveled to Peru, I really felt like I was going home. That was what I was looking for with my spirituality. I started working one on one with people, shamans, and really got the message I needed to bring this back to the States, not only in a healing practice, but in a school as well for shamanism. And that's what I've launched as well.
wow, wow, that is so cool. Another synchronicity is that I just like you as a kid, loved reading anything with paranormal, especially with the myths. I had a fascination with all the pantheons of gods, and really centered around Greece and Egypt, especially. And it's so fascinating. I love hearing those stories because it really shows that something in us in our youth told us the path that we were going to go on. And and it's so funny because I don't know if you agree with this, but everything leads up to this point. And as far as our training, because you mentioned you kind of merged all those things together. But I thinking about it, a lot of people would think, of course, I mentioned in the comment that it's more scientific or logically based, but Jung was very much a spiritual person. And they considered him very much a mystic, or some people do. So at a very early age you had that. So going on, you had some, I think it was 2005, where you had some health concerns, and is that what brought you into shamanism, as the health concerns?
I think it took me through more of a dark night of the soul, where really trying to figure out how I would use my spirituality, my connection to source, to get through it. The first health challenges were a spinal injury with my lower back, and then also one with my neck. And then finally in 2010, December 2009, and then all of 2010, working through breast cancer. And I am cancer free, but when you have to deal with that much health issues so closely together, it does make one wonder what's going on. And I think it just drove me to really go deep with my spirituality and developed my compassion for other people that may be going through health issues as well.
I think you bring up some really great points there too, because a lot of times people think because we're healers or we work with energy, or we do shamanic, they're like, well, why did you get sick? And I'm like, well, a couple of reasons. One, if I go through the sickness, I know how to work with it. I don't necessarily have to do that, but you also sent another major thing, compassion. Because if we're very much, to me, if we just walk through life and say, oh, I can heal that with energy, we're not going to have any compassion for people that are going through health issues, and it'll almost feel judgmental towards them, not be helpful for them. It's like I just was telling you before we started that I just got over COVID. And one of the things that it brought me to is fully understanding what somebody goes through. Now, my symptoms were pretty mild, but still the fatigue was amazing. And then I got to work through it with energy. And I think that is super important for a healer to get, to understand it. And so it's not always, my mother was a Mayan, she was a shamanic practitioner too, through the Mayan traditions. And she passed away in 2012. And, I always say that, hey, she passed away because she was ready to go. It was just time. Yeah. So I think when it comes to energy work, what are your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of people that, look at energy workers and they feel like we're like invincible. And I'm like, I'm still a human being. I still go through all kinds of stuff, my emotions. Sometimes I'm a jerk, all those kind of things. I go through things where I'm growing just like everybody else.
Well, and I tell my students with my shamanic study program that we need to go through these. We've come down on earth to experience the human experience, and that I think we need to be experiencing these things to understand how to have compassion and understand and relate to other people, but how to get on the other end. I've gone through, I had to go with my cancer. I had to do chemo and radiation and all those things. And so I know how to guide someone through that process. Without that, it's just, I could imagine it, but I've felt it and lived it. So I know that even as light workers, we're going to get sick. It's how we deal with the sickness and how we then can recover from it, how we're recovering, and then how we go forward with our perspective. That's how I look at my illnesses, and that's what I share with my students.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, because I mean, it kind of even comes down to, you know, I'm sure you've grown, matured emotionally. You know, even in emotional intelligence, we grow as we get older too, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I always look at some things when I don't know if you do this as well. I can almost see something in somebody because I've done it. You know, it's kind of like our parents said. I used to look at my mom like, "How do you know that I did that?" She goes, "Son, I've done it, been there, done that, got the T-shirt, all those things you think you're getting away with. I used to try to get away with my mother." But it's similar, you know, in a sense, because, you know, people don't realize that, you know, what we're teaching is, at least I think a good teacher teaches from their experience and not necessarily their knowledge.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And that's actually one thing with my background, because it's so varied. I've worked in corporate settings and nonprofits and universities, and with my education and then working with the shamans, I am able to offer insight that I think a lot of people might not have the same type of experience, so they can't. And I have lots and lots of experiences that I can draw from.
So what is your practice now going? Because I know you take people to Peru. And what does that entail? Like and I know you have you do shamanic teaching, I think, apprenticeship. And I think you mentioned typically with women, but I think you were talking about men, bringing men into the fold here soon.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that work?
Sure. I do have a school. I launched it 3 years ago, and it was really the work that I was doing with the shamans in Peru. I got a clear message that I needed to bring back what I was learning here to the States. And at that time, I decided to focus on offering it to women. I have close to 50 active students in the program. It's national, international. And that first year that I bring people on, it really addresses who they are and what their what's the reason that they're here, what's their soul's purpose. And so we really examine that. And we also look at who's on their team, who's their spirit guide, power animals. Do they have spirited plants that are around them? So really developing that and helping them manifest what they want to create. And that's the first year. And the second year, we go deeper with what's a spiritual leader, what's a good citizen. We dive deeper into shamanic healing. I am going to be offering it and starting a men's group next year in 2022. And hopefully that will grow as well and be well received. Now, with that program, in addition to that, with the work that I was doing with the shamans out of Tarapoto, Peru, right in the Amazon, is they knew I had students, and they were like, "We want you to bring the students back. We want light workers. We need more and more light workers." And so with their request, I then offered to take trips to Peru. And it's open to people that aren't in the program too. This year, it happened to be just my students. But we go down there, we go through 4 ceremonies. It's a 10-day retreat. It's a cleanse, it's a dieta. So it's really a deep dive where there's journaling, and you can create art and play music, but there's no reading, limited talking. It's an inward journey. And you have 4 ceremonies. You have a lot of one-on-one time with the shamans. The students left profoundly changed. It was so transformational. It was mind-blowing. And I have it scheduled for next year in July as well, second half of July.
Wow, that's going to be really amazing. I think I've always wanted to go to Peru, and I had this cool experience, and I think to me this is unusual, but there happened to be a travel agent there, a tour guide on Machu Picchu with their phone on Zoom, and they were. I have a friend that does these tours of different parts of the South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and I messaged her, and she goes, "Hey, can you be on a meeting in about 30 minutes?" And it was just me, the tour guide, and the the travel agent.
Wow.
And they were literally walking around. But what I thought was the coolest experience was that I could actually feel it, because I'm pretty sensitive to energy. And through Zoom, I could still feel the energy of Machu Picchu. And I was like, wow.
That's really
I'm like, it was extraordinary. And I just thought, I feel like people need to experience these things.
Oh, totally.
The ancient energy really gives us a lot. And it doesn't matter what's, to me, it doesn't matter which side I go to. When I go to Chichen Itza or the little Indian mound here in St. Petersburg, that I still get profound shifts. But to be there with a guide, a shamanic guide, is going to be a probably doubly as amazing, because they're able to guide you through the energy and teach you what you're experiencing. And so, which is what I feel like a lot of times what a shaman does. They guide you through your soul's journey, through the dark nights of the soul, and that kind of stuff, because we all have them.
Yes. And we do. And one thing I want to mention for people that are interested is I'm based in Minneapolis, and there's in-person teachings in Minneapolis, but it's on Zoom too. So it's live video conferencing for people that are not here in Minnesota.
Well, I mean, you could go to Minnesota and after you're done with class, go to the Mall of Americas.
You could.
Although it might, after you're in that energy, you might not want to be around that many people.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So, what do you do? Private sessions or and that kind of stuff? What do you with people? How does that work?
I do. I do private sessions when I do my shamanic healing and my spiritual wellness coaching. And the shamanic healing is really a shamanic practitioner really enters into different dimensions to really help individuals heal. And it's really accessing that universal life energy. You might want to call it source or God, and then really directing that to the individual. And for shamanic practitioners, we do a few things. One is we address things like power loss. Let's say someone doesn't feel connected to source or their spirit guides. They might feel a little loss of power. We could bring back some of that with maybe a power animal retrieval, or there may be stuck energy. We get bombarded every day with all this negative energy, and some's going to get stuck on us. And so as a healer, I am able to remove that with the assistance of my guides going into a different dimension. And then sometimes we lose some of our soul essence. We can lose a piece of our soul essence by stubbing our toe or getting a car accident or some larger trauma. And then a soul retrieval is needed. So sometimes I take things away, I add things, and then infuse people with divine energy. And those are in private sessions. My spiritual wellness coaching, that's simply helping people peel back the onion of what's their life purpose? Why are they here? And then assisting them in mapping out what are next steps. How can they get to that? Be it launching a healing practice, or being the best corporate banker, or being the best grandma. So I really meet people where they're at and coaching them to where they want to go.
Very, very cool. So thinking about that, and as far as like, I've really been, of course, it's hard not to have our mind on what's going on in the world, not necessarily individual things, but what I've really just looked at, especially, laying in bed for almost 3 weeks and not really being able to do anything other than be quiet and work energy, really makes you start thinking about, what's going on. And you do a lot of soul searching, of course, but I've really been thinking, because the division within the world is, I think, very hard, especially for sensitives, but I think it's hard for everybody. What are some of your thoughts on, as far as energetically, and how people can handle themselves emotionally or even spiritually through these times of, you could say, I actually jokingly about a year ago put everybody have a peaceful day, just because I wanted to see what the response was. And believe it or not, somebody was mad at me. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And so, but it's because everybody is really triggered right now with whatever's going on in their life. So what are your thoughts around that, and how can they kind of maintain that balance?
Well, and you can imagine that I've had to work with people on all spectrums, so everywhere in between. And I try to meet people with compassion and realize that if they're angry, like that story about you said, hey, have a nice day, and they were angry, to me it's something besides what you said. And I try to remember that it's not, sometimes it's something else, it's deeper, but they're using that opportunity to go to being angry. So I just treat people with compassion, understanding, and tell people that's how you want to do it. Now, to stay out of that energy is just staying centered, keeping your vibration high, making sure you're getting enough sleep and eating well, maybe reducing or eliminating alcohol, just doing the normal wellness coaching things that I would tell people. But those are my thoughts of what's happening.
Now, that's interesting, because some people say, but alcohol, that helps me get through the day.
Right.
But of course, we know that's an escape sometimes,
yep. Yeah.
as opposed to, an enjoyment.
Yeah,
I tend to agree on that. There's just one of those things where, and I also feel like not being ignorant, but also not getting involved. There's just times that, of course, I'm not going to lie, there's times where I see things on Facebook or in a conversation, I start to get triggered, and I just have to be like, yep, gonna walk away. Because I just don't want to get engaged in the energy. But I just, I feel like, especially this last 18 months have been pretty bad. And I think that it's also I think it's a teaching opportunity for us, because it allows for us to really practice what we preach. I had a teacher tell me, I was probably about 21, 22 years old. Interestingly enough, I had gone out to the club the night before and had some drinks, and I came into her class, and she said, one day you're going to understand that you have to do your work, your internal spiritual work. And if you don't, there's going to be a time in the future where it's going to be very difficult to get through the day. And she basically said, in a very thick Polish accent, she said, the world's going to rip you apart. And again, at first I was like, 21, 22 years old. I'm like, she's crazy. But now I realize emotionally, it was very important, and to practice that. So, again, going back to everything happens exactly in the order it's happened, exactly what we're leading up to. So, so I guess one of the things I would like to chat about is also just a few minutes about what you're going to be presenting on the Spirit Heart Cruise. And I know you're going to be doing 3 workshops. I guess I could pull it up, but if you could just talk a little bit.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I'm really excited about it. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be on the cruise. I have 3 workshops. The first one is going to be how to meet your spirit animal. And it really is, that's for shamanism, that's the cornerstone of who's on your team. I call all the guardian angels, spirit guides, and power animals around you your team. So that is the cornerstone. So we will start out with that. If you already know who one of your spirit animal is, remember it's a team, so you'll get to know another one. So that's the first workshop. The second one is meet the ancient spirits of your land. So the spirits of your land, we're going to, they've been there for thousands of years, and you're really going to be able to connect with them and understand how can you live in balance and harmony with your land. With things changing, with climate change, do they need your support? So that will be the second one. And then the third one is a very special spirit boat ceremony. It's a healing technique that shamans have used for many, many years. I will energetically carry everyone up to the upper world where you will receive healing from your spirit guide, and also be able to communicate and talk and feel them as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That is very exciting. And the other part is, you and I had a chance to talk about it. I just got the quotes a couple weeks ago on going to the Mayan ruins. And I know we had talked about brainstorming about
Yeah.
if you'd want to do that. But there's, and I'm going to be doing a presentation called Return of Kukulkan Within, and so that should be an interesting presentation. But yeah, I'm really excited about the cruise. Of course, you can't go wrong on a cruise. Everything is there. The food's there. You get to go sleep, and plus 7 days or 6 days of conferences. You just really can't go wrong on that. But
And absolutely, being on Royal Caribbean, the top cruise line, it's going to be great.
One of the largest cruise ships in the world.
Absolutely.
One of the things I love about that ship is there is a central park in the middle of the ship.
Oh, wow. Good.
So with trees and everything else, and I like to get on there and have my coffee in the morning, and or tea or whatever it is I'm drinking at that time. So very cool stuff. So just a last few questions, and we'll kind of wrap up for the night. What are some last minute things that you would want to tell people as words of wisdom? Just to kind of like give them to go throughout the days ahead.
Well, I would say that stay balanced, stay grounded as much as you can. One technique I share with clients and my students is try to use duck feathers. Ducks allow water to roll off their back. And so when things come at you, just let it roll off, go into Mother Earth. And I think if you can really address things that way, it'll be very helpful.
Just let it roll off your back.
Just let it roll. Just let it roll, and don't be worried about it too much.
I think that's important too. I love that because a lot of people will tell me, I'm just so sick of drama. I'm like, well, I don't know, unless you go sit in a monastery somewhere, I got a feeling you're going to have drama. It's just a part of life. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between the monks and us. We have to live here in this Western world, and they get to live in a monastery up on a mountaintop. So you're going to run across drama. So to let it roll off your back, absolutely, is going to be definitely helpful.
Absolutely. Don't get sucked in, like you said. Don't get sucked in. Let it roll off. And then if something happens, try to change your focus. Because ultimately what you feed grows. So if you're in negativity, if you're in drama, you know what? That's going to be spiraling around you. If you're in calmness and you're letting it roll off, that's what you'll get in return.
Yeah. Well, and then likes attract to like, and everything comes like tenfold.
Yes.
And there's so many sayings we could do, but it's just telling us the wisdom of what we put out there comes back. And so, so last question I'll ask is, so I know that you have a shamanic practitioner. You have about 50 people from around the country and internationally. What are some next things for you? Any events coming up? Any books coming out, or any projects that you're working on?
A lot in the works. So I have my school, new group of students starting next year. So check it out on my website, zenithhigh.com. And I do have a book that is with the editor right now. It will be stories about my travels to Peru and then my shamanic wisdoms that I've been able to gather. And I'm really looking forward to that. I have some workshops and cacao ceremonies coming up, and as well, of course, as the cruise next year. So I hope everyone signs up for the cruise.
Yeah, and if you want to check that out, I'll put that right here at the bottom of the website, spiritheartcruises.com. Everybody, thank you so much. I am really honored to have Dr. Newstrom on the show tonight, and to get to know her better throughout time. I'm also wanted to let everybody know I am super excited about my show next week. It's going to be a little different. My friend Phil Walker is coming on. He does these crystal bowls concerts and meditations on the beach here in St. Petersburg. So I'm actually going to be driving down to Yen because next week he's going to be doing it in his center called Awakening. So I'll be hooking up all the microphones and lights, and he will be doing a concert. We'll talk to him about sound healing for a little bit, but mainly the main focus is going to be him actually playing the bowls while I'm live. So, you know, get prepared to do a meditation and be a part of that live. So it'll be a pretty cool experience. So, and then I have next in October, I'm not going to tell her about all of them, but I have a gentleman that was a paraplegic, and he's coming on sometime in the end of October, I think October 27th. And he actually healed himself energetically and is walking again.
Wow.
And they told him he would never walk again, that he'd always be in a wheelchair, but now he's definitely walking again. And so, you know, there's lots of cool content coming up and really excited. So if you really like this, make sure you guys subscribe to my channel so that you guys can get updates for it. So Dr. Newstrom, again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been very much a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll have you on when you have your book come out.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about that as well. So check her out at zenithhigh.com, everybody. So, and much love.
Thank you.